Explosive new evidence exposes Longest Ballot Committee's alleged Marxist-Leninist links. After Canada's snap federal election on April 28, 2025, the Longest Ballot Committee, once dismissed as a quirky protest, turned voting into a test of endurance by flooding ridings with candidates and forcing Elections Canada to print record-breaking ballots. What seemed like satire soon became a logistical nightmare, leaving voters frustrated and officials scrambling. Now, new revelations suggest the stunt may not have been innocent at all. Explosive new evidence exposes the committee's alleged Marxist-Leninist ties, sparking concerns over legality, transparency, and manipulation of democracy. The disruption was massive. In Carleton, where Pierre Poilievre ran, ballots stretched over a meter, while Alberta's Battle River, Crowfoot saw a staggering 214 names, forcing polling stations to improvise with oversized sheets. What the group called performance art looked to many like sabotage. Voters struggled to find names, officials struggled to process ballots, and frustration mounted. Though the committee claimed to spotlight flaws in Canada's system, for many the protest buried its message under chaos and suspicion. The stunt grabbed attention as voters posted selfies with ballots stretching like scrolls, laughing about the absurdity. Yet doubts grew. How could a supposed grassroots protest suddenly muster the money, manpower, and coordination to run hundreds of candidates across provinces? Running even one campaign is costly. Managing dozens demands serious infrastructure. The image of a ragtag activist group gave way to suspicion the committee was backed by something larger, experienced, and strategically motivated. Those suspicions exploded in August when a viral video alleged the committee was tied to the Communist Party of Canada, Marxist-Leninist. It presented documents, posts, and networks linking the two, while the MLPC's own social media defended the committee. Instead of distancing themselves, that defense deepened the sense of collusion. Analysts called it the smoking gun. Why would a registered party protect a supposedly grassroots stunt unless the committee was in fact an extension of its broader partisan campaign? A deeper look at the MLPC's archives makes the overlap hard to ignore. Their official website brags about the longest ballot in Canada's history, tracking which ridings were targeted, publishing candidate names, and even profiling individuals tied to the project. The coverage isn't casual. It reads like campaign literature, framing the stunt as part of their ongoing political mission. Far from observing from the sidelines, the MLPC positioned itself as a partner, even a director, embedding the committee's antics into its larger narrative of destabilizing mainstream elections and injecting radical ideology into the national conversation. Even branding elements tell a story. Some of the committee's early designs featured bold red and yellow color schemes, uncannily similar to MLPC propaganda. Later iterations swapped them out for neutral tones, a move critics interpret as deliberate rebranding to hide ties that had grown too obvious. Cultural overlaps deepen the suspicion. Satirical songs tied to the committee, credited to activist Kieran Shukovich, carried lyrical themes nearly identical to MLPC talking points. When logos, music, slogans, and ideology converge so seamlessly, the line between parody and partisan propaganda collapses. What was presented as grassroots whimsy increasingly looks like a calculated ideological campaign masquerading as performance art. The implications extend beyond optics. Elections Canada rules clearly limit registered parties to one candidate per riding. If the MLPC used the committee as a vehicle to run dozens of affiliated candidates under a veneer of independence, it could amount to bending or even breaking electoral law. And even if no technical violation occurred, the ethical breach is undeniable. Citizens thought they were supporting a protest against a flawed system, but in reality, many may have been advancing the interests of a registered party. Transparency is the backbone of democratic legitimacy. If that transparency is compromised, then the very trust that sustains elections is eroded. Public opinion reflects this fracture. Surveys suggest Canadians are split almost evenly, with a strong plurality convinced the long ballot stunt undermined faith in elections. Among Conservatives, anger runs especially high, with supporters arguing their candidates were buried under voter fatigue. Yet younger and more left-leaning Canadians often defended the project, praising it as a way of forcing politicians to confront long-ignored debates over electoral reform. For them, disruption was the point. In a stagnant system resistant to change, only a shocking act could put reform back on the table. The disagreement reveals not just a division over tactics, but a fundamental split over what democracy should look like in Canada. Online spaces magnify the clash. On forums like Reddit, heated arguments erupt between those who see the committee as subversive election interference and those who insist it is a legitimate protest strategy. One critic raged that the stunt makes a mockery of democracy itself, while another countered that sometimes you have to break the system to show how broken it already is. These exchanges reveal more than frustration. They illustrate a society grappling with how far protest can go before it stops being democratic expression and crosses into obstruction. The political backdrop makes the controversy heavier. Prime Minister Mark Carney, elected on promises to restore trust, now faces a scandal striking at institutional legitimacy. Opposition MPs demand hearings into loopholes and partisan meddling. Beyond Canada, the spectacle drew ridicule when U.S. President Donald Trump mocked the never-ending ballots. For a country already strained by inflation, housing shortages, and voter apathy, the image of chaotic ballots risks further eroding public confidence in democracy. Still, the committee's stated purpose deserves acknowledgement. Canada's first-past-the-post system often delivers skewed results. Majorities on less than 40% of the vote, small parties shut out entirely. By producing comically long ballots, the committee forced millions to confront flaws long ignored. That achievement is undeniable. Yet revelations of ties to the Marxist-Leninist party strip away moral authority, recasting what looked like citizen-driven protest into a cynical partisan effort to bend democracy toward ideological goals. This leaves Canadians with a difficult question. Was the Longest Ballot Committee an authentic grassroots protest or a partisan ploy disguised as satire? Explosive new evidence exposes links to the Marxist-Leninists, deepening doubts about the stunt's true intent. The ballots themselves may have been long, but their legacy stretches further, undermining trust, bending rules, and testing the resilience of Canada's democracy. In the end, democracy survives only with transparency. Without it, even satire can become a dangerous illusion.